You may be overlooking the most powerful 5 minutes of your entire Ramadan. Think about this carefully. You are only a few minutes away from breaking your fast. The table is set. The food is placed gently in front of you. The scent of it reaches you. Your body feels tired. Your throat feels dry. Your energy feels low. And your mind keeps returning to one simple thought. That first sip of water. What if I told you that these final 5 minutes carry more weight than the entire day behind you? What if the most spiritually charged moment of your fast is not the hunger at noon, not the long afternoon fatigue, not even the moment you finally eat, but the quiet space right before relief arrives? Most of us treat those minutes as waiting time. We adjust plates, we check our phones, we glance at the clock again and again, we talk casually, we prepare the dates, we are present physically, but spiritually we are somewhere else. Yet something very subtle is happening inside you during that window. All day long you have been saying no, no to hunger, no to thirst, no to irritation, no to careless speech. Each time you restrained yourself, something within you shifted. Every time you felt discomfort and chose obedience instead of indulgence, your heart was being shaped. Fasting is not simply about abstaining from food and drink. It is about reordering your loyalties. It is about proving quietly that your love for Allah is greater than your love for comfort. By the time you reach those final 5 minutes, you are not the same person you were at dawn. You are weaker physically, but often softer spiritually. Hunger humbles you. Thirst exposes your dependence. Fatigue reminds you of your limits. And when a human being feels their limits clearly, something powerful happens. The illusion of control begins to crack. During most of the year, we move as though we are self-sufficient. We make plans, we execute tasks, we believe we are managing everything. But in those last moments before Iftar, you feel something different. You feel longing. You feel the closeness of relief, but you do not control its timing. You are waiting, and waiting has a way of refining the heart. There is a tenderness in that space. A vulnerability, when directed toward Allah, becomes strength. The problem is not that those 5 minutes lack power. The problem is that we rarely slow down enough to notice it. We rush toward relief. We rush toward consumption. We rush toward satisfaction. But what if, instead of rushing, you paused? What if you treated those minutes not as a countdown, but as a meeting? Because in reality, you are standing between effort and acceptance. You spent the entire day striving. Now you stand in quiet anticipation. This is the moment when your dua carries a different weight. Not because of superstition, not because of magic formulas, but because your heart is in a state of humility. Think about your most sincere prayers in life. Were they spoken when you felt strong and independent, or when you felt small, when you felt small, when you felt desperate? Sincerity grows in the soil of need, and in those final 5 minutes, your need is clear. You want water, you want relief, you want rest, and deeper than that, you want acceptance. You want your effort to matter, you want your hunger to mean something, you want your struggle to be seen, and it is seen. But do you slow down enough to speak from that place? Or do those minutes dissolve into distraction? Imagine this instead. 5 minutes before the call to prayer, you gently put your phone away. You stop adjusting the table. You sit still. Even if there is noise around you, you create stillness within you. You take one slow breath and another. But to recognize it, you remind yourself quietly, I did this for you. Those words change something inside you. The hunger becomes intentional, the thirst becomes purposeful, the fatigue becomes meaningful. You are no longer simply waiting for food. You are standing as a servant. Reflect for a moment on your day. Where were you patient? Where did you struggle? Where did you fall short? Do not defend yourself. Do not criticize yourself harshly. Just acknowledge, Ya Allah, this was my effort today. It was imperfect, but it was sincere. There is something powerful about presenting your day back to Allah before breaking your fast, almost as if you're placing it before Him gently and saying, this is what I brought. Before you ask for anything, pause in gratitude. Thank Him for the strength to fast. Thank Him for the ability to try. Thank Him for reaching another evening in Ramadan. Gratitude shifts the heart from entitlement to humility, and humility prepares the soul for sincere dua. Now speak, not loudly, just honestly. Ya Allah, accept this from me. Speak about what is actually heavy inside you. If you are anxious about your future, say it. If you are struggling in your marriage, say it. If you are carrying financial stress, say it. If your faith feels fragile, admit it. You do not need poetic language. You need honesty. There is a difference between reciting words and exposing your heart. And these final minutes, you are already aware of your weakness. Let that awareness shape your prayer. Say, I cannot fix this alone. Open what feels closed. Remove what harms me. Guide me where I am confused. Replace my fear with trust. Simple words, but real ones. And then sit in trust. Do not rush to check the time. Do not rush to end. Let the silence exist, because silence, when directed toward Allah, is not empty. It is full. When the call to prayer finally arrives, break your fast slowly. Feel the water, feel the relief. Notice how quickly discomfort turns into ease. Notice how what felt overwhelming all day disappears in seconds. There is a lesson hidden there. Relief always feels delayed until it arrives. And perhaps these 5 minutes were never just about food. Perhaps they were training you to handle waiting, to handle uncertainty, to handle the space between effort and outcome. If you repeat this practice every day in Ramadan, something begins to shift. Your heart starts to instinctively turn toward Allah before relief. Not only after it, you begin to seek Him in the waiting, not just in the receiving. And that instinct does not stay confined to Ramadan. It follows you into the rest of your life. When difficulty appears, you pause instead of reacting. When confusion comes, you ask instead of panicking. When blessings arrive, you thank instead of assuming. All of that begins here, in 5 quiet minutes. And most people never realize it. There is something else happening in those final 5 minutes that most of us do not notice. It is not just about hunger. It is not just about dua. It is about what those minutes are training inside you. All day long, you are in a state of restraint. You restrain your body. You restrain your tongue. You restrain your reactions. You restrain your reactions. You restrain your impulses. Transformation is. Last 5 minutes before. Iftar, reveal whether your fasting was merely physical or deeply spiritual. Because when relief is near, your true state appears. When something you have been longing for is seconds away, what fills your heart? Is it impatience? Is it irritation? Is it irritation? Is it irritation? Is it distraction? Or is it awareness? Those 5 minutes act like a mirror. They show you what your heart learned throughout the day. If you rush, if you complain, if you scroll endlessly to kill time, then perhaps the hunger stayed on the surface. But if you soften, if you reflect, if you feel your dependence clearly, then something deeper has taken root. There is a profound connection between waiting and worship. Waiting is one of the hardest human experiences. We wait for relief. We wait for clarity. We wait for answers. We wait for healing. And often we treat waiting as wasted time. We treat it as something to survive rather than something to live through intentionally. But Ramadan teaches something different. It teaches that waiting can be sacred. Those final 5 minutes are a miniature version of life itself. You have done your part. You woke up before dawn. You made the intention. You endured the day. You struggled quietly. Now you are in that space between effort and outcome, and you cannot speed it up. You cannot force the Adhan to come earlier. You cannot force the sun to set faster. You simply wait, and that waiting becomes an act of surrender. Surrender is nat. Odd weakness Surrender is trust. When you sit in those final moments calmly, you are saying, I have done what I could. Now I leave the rest to you. That statement, even if unspoken, reshapes your inner world because most anxiety comes from trying to control what is not ours to control. But in those 5 minutes, control is stripped away gently. You feel your dependence, you feel your need, and instead of resisting that feeling, you allow it to turn into dua. That is powerful. There is also something deeply healing about feeling your need without shame. We live in a world that teaches self-sufficiency as strength. We are told to be independent, to handle everything alone, to appear composed, but fasting exposes the truth. You are not self-sufficient. You are dependent on water, on food, on air, on time, on mercy. And when that dependence becomes clear, your relationship with Allah becomes more intimate. Because now you are not speaking from pride, you are speaking from need. And Allah loves when His servant calls upon Him with need, not performance, not perfect words, but honest need. The last 5 minutes before Iftar strip away performance. You are too tired to pretend, too hungry to act impressive, too aware of your weakness to be arrogant. That is why those minutes carry weight. Your ego is quieter. And when the ego softens, sincerity rises. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you truly felt present in those moments? Not distracted, not mentally planning what you will eat first, but fully aware, fully conscious, fully engaged with your heart. Presence is rare, but Ramadan offers it daily. The final minutes before Iftar are an invitation to presence. Presence with your hunger, presence with your effort, presence with your Lord, and presence changes everything. When you are present, you notice things. You notice how fragile you are. You notice how quickly your mood can shift. You notice how relief transforms your state in seconds. And that awareness carries lessons beyond Ramadan. Consider how often in life we believe difficulty will last forever. When we are anxious, we feel it will never end. When we are grieving, we feel the weight will always be there. When we are confused, we feel clarity will never arrive. But every single evening in Ramadan, Allah shows you something. Hunger feels endless at times, but it is not. Thirst feels unbearable at moments, but it is not permanent. The sun sets, relief comes, not because you forced it, not because you panicked, but because it was written to come at its time. What if those 5 minutes are teaching you to trust timing? What if they are teaching you that relief has a schedule you cannot see? And your role is not to control it. Your role is to remain faithful until it arrives. That lesson alone can reshape the way you experience hardship because suddenly waiting is no longer empty. It becomes meaningful. You begin to see the space before relief as preparation rather than punishment. The final minutes before Iftar also reveal something about gratitude. Think about how ordinary water feels most of the year. You barely think about it. You drink it without reflection. But after a day of fasting, that first sip feels extraordinary. Why? Because deprivation restored awareness. Gratitude intensifies when comfort is delayed. And that is another hidden gift of those 5 minutes. They sharpen appreciation. They remind you that blessings are not small. They only feel small when you stop noticing them. In those moments before Iftar, you are on the edge of relief. And that edge sharpens your perception. If you pause intentionally, you begin to understand something deeper. Life itself is a series of edges between difficulty and ease. Edges between difficulty and ease, edges between loss and healing. The way you behave at the edge determines the strength of your heart. If you collapse into impatience, the heart weakens. If you stand in trust, the heart stabilizes. And Ramadan gives you daily training in standing at the edge every single day. Another layer of those 5 minutes is sincerity. All day fasting, your family knows. Your coworkers know. Your friends know. But those final minutes before Iftar can be entirely private. No one needs to know what you are whispering in your heart. No one needs to hear your dua. No one needs to see your reflection. And private worship carries a different sweetness because it is free from audience, free from comparison. It becomes just you and Allah. And that simplicity purifies intention. Imagine building that habit daily. 5 minutes of private honesty, 5 minutes of unfiltered conversation, 5 minutes of laying your burdens down without performance. Over 30 days, that becomes a pattern, and patterns shape character. You may not notice dramatic change immediately. You may still face the same challenges tomorrow, but something inside you begins to anchor. You become less reactive, less frantic, less shaken by uncertainty. Because every evening you practice surrender. Every evening you practice turning before consuming. Every evening you chose reflection before relief. That order matters. Reflection before relief. Gratitude before gratification. Dua before consumption. When you reverse the order, the heart changes. Consumption without reflection feeds the ego. Reflection before consumption feeds the soul. And slowly your priorities begin to shift. You start to see, rave closeness more than comfort. You start to crave acceptance more than appetite. You start to crave steadiness more than satisfaction. And that shift is subtle, but it is powerful. These 5 minutes are not dramatic. They are quiet, but quiet habits build strong foundations. If you neglect them, nothing seems to happen immediately. But if you protect them, something invisible grows, like a seed under soil, but alive. Each evening you plant intention. Each evening you water it with sincerity. Each evening you allow trust to settle deeper. And over time, your relationship with Allah becomes less seasonal, less reactive, more consistent, more intimate. More steady, you begin to turn to Him before the storm, not only during it. You begin to thank Him before relief, not only after it. And that is a different kind of faith. A faith built in the quiet, a faith strengthened in waiting, a faith refined in 5 minutes most people overlook. Ramadan is not just about enduring hunger. It is about re-educating the heart. And sometimes the most transformative classroom is the one that lasts only 5 minutes a day. As Ramadan continues, something subtle begins to happen. The hunger becomes familiar. The thirst becomes expected. The waiting becomes routine. And that is precisely where the real test begins. Because when something becomes familiar, it can lose its meaning. The first fast feels intense. The early days feel heavy. You are aware of every sensation, but as the days pass, you adjust. Your body adapts, your schedule adapts, even your mind adapts, and suddenly the 5 minutes before iftar can begin to feel ordinary again. This is where intentionality becomes essential, because spirituality is not sustained by emotion alone. It is sustained by awareness. The last 5 minutes before breaking your fast are not powerful because they are dramatic. They are powerful because they are consistent. Consistency is what shapes the heart, not intensity. You do not need to cry every evening. You do not need to feel overwhelming emotion. You do not need long poetic supplications. What transforms you is showing up in those 5 minutes, even when you are tired, even when your heart feels heavy. Especially when your heart feels heavy. There will be days in Ramadan when you feel spiritually strong. Your prayer feels focused. Your Quran feels meaningful. Your patience feels steady. And then there will be other days. Days when your mind wanders. Days when irritation returns. Days when your focus feels scattered. On those days, the 5 minutes before iftar become even more important, because those minutes are not reserved for the strong. They are meant for the struggling. Sometimes the most sincere dua comes from exhaustion, not strength. Sometimes the most honest words come when you stop pretending you are fine. In those moments, you may not have energy for long supplications, but you can whisper, Ya Allah, I am tired. I am trying. I feel weak. Help me. Faith does not require constant intensity. It requires honesty. One of the greatest misunderstandings about spiritual growth is that we expect it to feel dramatic. We expect fireworks. We expect visible change. We expect immediate answers. But real growth is quiet. It happens beneath the surface, like roots extending underground, when visible, yet strengthening the entire structure. When you protect those 5 minutes every evening, you are extending roots. Roots of patience, roots of trust, roots of gratitude. You may not see the change instantly, but weeks later, when something difficult happens and you pond with calm instead of panic, you will realize something shifted. When you face uncertainty and instinctively make dua instead of spiraling into fear, you will realize something grew. When relief delays and you remain steady instead of resentful, you will understand what those evenings built inside you. Those 5 minutes train your reflexes. They teach your heart what to do first. And what you do first in moments of tension defines your inner stability. Do you react first, Ivy, or do you turn first? Ramadan trains you to turn first. Before satisfying your need, before satisfying your desire, you turn. And that order matters more than we realize, because life will constantly place you in situations where relief feels close but not yet present. You will wait for answers to prayers. You will wait for doors to open. You will wait for clarity in relationships. You will wait for healing and health. You will wait for resolution in conflicts. And in each of those moments, you are standing in a space similar to those 5 minutes before Iftar. You have done what you can. Now you are suspended between effort and outcome. If you have trained your heart in Ramadan, you will know what to do in that space. You will pause. You will breathe. You will speak to Allah before speaking to anyone else. You will remind yourself that timing belongs to Him, and slowly that habit will begin to shape your entire life. There is also something deeply humbling about recognizing how small the window of discomfort truly is. Think about it. All day you fast, you endure, and then in seconds, relief arrives. The water touches your lips, the hunger fades, what discomfort dissolves, what felt overwhelming hours earlier disappears quickly. Life is filled with moments like this. We fear difficulty as if it will define us forever, but off it. And difficulty is temporary. What remains longer is the way we handled it. Did we allow it to make us bitter? Of Munther, Fursiate, or Purgit, or did we allow it to make us better? Those 5 minutes are like a daily reminder that discomfort has an end, but the character you build during it stays. Another dimension of these moments is privacy. In a world where so much is public, Ramadan gives you private spaces. In a world where so much is public, Ramadan gives you private spaces. Your hunger is public, but your dua can remain unseen. No one needs to hear what you ask. No one needs to witness your vulnerability. And there is purity in that secrecy. Worship that is hidden often carries more sincerity because it is free from audience, free from validation, free from comparison. When you sit quietly before Iftar and speak to Allah from your heart, that conversation belongs only to you and Him. And that intimacy builds a relationship, not a seasonal ritual, not a cultural habit, a relationship. Relationships are built through consistent communication, through honesty, through vulnerability, through showing up. Imagine if you gave 5 focused minutes every evening to someone you loved deeply. Would that relationship not grow? Would that connection not strengthen, I fear? Now, imagine giving those 5 minutes to Allah, not rushed, not divided, just focused. Over 30 days, that becomes 2.5 hours of deliberate connection, 2.5 hours of conscious surrender, 2.5 hours of intentional turning. That is not small, that is transformative. And when Ramadan ends, what remains is not only the memory of hunger, what remains is the habit of turning. The habit of pausing before reacting, the habit of gratitude before gratification, the habit of speaking before consuming. That habit can extend beyond Ramadan. When something hurts, you pause. When something excites you, you think. When something confuses you ask. When something tempts you, you remember your discipline. Those 5 minutes become a blueprint. They teach you how to navigate the space between desire and decision. They teach you how to handle discomfort without immediate escape. They teach you that you can endure more than you thought. And perhaps most importantly, they teach you that you are never alone in your endurance. When you sit before Iftar and whisper your worries, you are not speaking into emptiness. You are speaking to the one who hears before you speak, the one who knows before you explain, the one who understands before you articulate. That awareness alone can calm anxiety. It can soften fear. It can reduce loneliness, because loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of feeling heard. And when you believe that Allah hears you fully, loneliness begins to fade, even if your circumstances remain the same. Even if the challenges persist, even if answers are delayed, you feel accompanied, you feel seen, you feel held. That internal steadiness is a form of relief. Sometimes relief does not come by removing the storm. Sometimes it comes by strengthening you within it. Those 5 minutes cultivate that inner strength. They remind you that while you cannot control outcomes, you can control your posture of humility, your posture of trust, your posture of surrender, and posture shapes experience. Two people can face the same difficulty. One collapses into resentment. The other stands in patience. The difference is not always in the external situation. It is in the internal posture. Ramadan trains posture. Hunger bends you. The thirst softens you. Waiting humbles you. And humility opens the door to closeness. When you reach the final days of Ramadan, reflect on how those 5 minutes have changed. You win, not dramatically, but subtly. Are you calmer? Are you more reflective? Are you quicker to make dua? Are you slower to react in anger? Are you more aware of blessings? These are signs of growth, not loud, not flashy. And growth that is real does not disappear when Ramadan ends. If you protect it, if you continue the habit, you may not fast every day outside Ramadan, but you can still pause. You can still carve 5 minutes before a decision, 5 minutes before reacting to a message, 5 minutes before responding to conflict, 5 minutes before sleeping, 5 minutes of reflection, 5 minutes of gratitude, 5 minutes of surrender. Ramadan shows you that transformation does not require hours. It requires consistency, small, sincere, repeated acts. The 5 minutes before iftar are a daily invitation, an invitation to shift from routine to relationship, from distraction to awareness, from consumption to connection, from impatience to trust. And if you accept that invitation daily, something beautiful begins to form. A heart that is steadier, a mind that is calmer, a soul that is more anchored, not because life became easier, but because your reflex became remembrance, your instinct became supplication, your waiting became worship, and that is where real strength lives. When the quiet moments no one sees, in the pauses most people rush past, in the 5 minutes that appear small, but carry the weight of transformation.